Hello and welcome to What a Guy Wants. Joining you from Doha is myself, Coach Ali, and joining you from Dubai is my friend and co-host, Coach Yogesh. And as you all know, we're all about bringing in topics all to do with men and issues that men really talk about and but generally do definitely think about. And today's topic is an essential one, and it's all to do with men and trust. So when I say men and trust, I know that we were having this conversation a few days back, Yogesh, and then we were talking about trust and what it means. And then automatically both of us had that moment where we're like, okay, this is something that we need to bring into our next episode. So what comes
Yeah.
up for you when I use the word men and trust?
I feel with regards to that, not just men, just in general, trust is must. We keep talking about like a lot of my conversations with men come from the trust in my relationship, the trust with my partner, trust issues coming up because of previous betrayals and so forth. So there is a lot of or trust between friends or trust between family. There's a lot of challenges with regards to trust. There's too much information there. Everyone's expecting people to be perfect. And if someone lets us down, if someone doesn't keep their word for one little thing, oh my God, trust is lost and so forth. So trust has been a very, very big topic, always come up in all my coaching sessions. And for me, the thing that I want to really talk about today is not the external trust, because the external trust is the direct indicator of what's the level of internal trust that's happening. That is primary for me. So for me, trust in self, how much do I trust myself? How secure do I feel is paramount for any relationship, any friendship, everything outside.
That's beautiful because whenever we think about trust, right, we're always thinking about trusting the other person. And it's so essential that trusting the other person is also built on the premise of how much we trust ourselves and how much faith and trust we have in ourselves. And it's such an important topic. Sometimes I've had this conversation with clients. It's where I'm like, do you trust yourself to trust somebody else? So it's not about trusting someone else, but it's actually trusting our own selves to
Yeah.
trust someone else. And it's such an important one. And
Yeah.
as we go deeper, where do you think that our insecurities, where trust is concerned, where does it stem from?
So each and every human being in this world has gone through the same cycle. When we are born in this world, physically, mentally, emotionally, we are not equipped to deal with anything. Literally, this is a new world. Either I'm the alien or I'm in a world of aliens. I don't know the way of the world of Earth. I don't know what traditions there are, what food I eat. So inherently, the baby trusts, right? The baby trusts that the mother will feed. The baby is trusting of anyone giving them warmth, giving them physical safety, and so forth. So our inherent nature is trust. The insecurities comes in because none of us are perfect. Humans aren't perfect. So generally, it comes in through our parents. The first point of contact is where trust is breached. And some of it can be as a kid, I need love in this way, and my parents give me love in this way. So it's just a difference in way of wanting love and giving love, and that makes us feel not loved, not good enough. So initially the child has an ego, has a personality that is forming. A lot of that personality and ego is forming to keep the child safe. That's it. Survival only. Physically, mentally, it's just safe. The little kid doesn't die. So the ego comes in and the ego tells us we are not good enough. See, there are two options, okay? Either a 2-year-old kid will know the real thing. Listen, your dad is an alcoholic, your mom is going through depression. So literally your emotional safety and your psychological safety will not be taken care of. If that information is passed on to the 2-year-old, it means that I'm alone in a jungle without food where there are wild animals falling. I'm gonna collapse and I'm gonna die. So the kid needs psychological and emotional safety. So that's one option that would definitely not let the baby survive. Or the other option is that there's an ego that's formed and it says, you know what, you're not good enough. Because you're not good enough, you are too clingy, you're too needy. That's why you don't get the love. So that's very, very basis of doubting ourselves. I feel the lack of self-trust comes from self-doubt. And that's basically the internal messaging each and every one of us gets, that I'm not good enough. That's why I don't get the love. I'm not deserving. I'm not worthy of love.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful because as you were saying all this, right? It's not complicated. It's the simple things. It's more about, a child being promised by the father that as when I come back from work tonight, I'm going to play a game of catch with. And the father's had a bad day and he comes back and the father's like, okay, I'm too tired. I can't do this now. And what the child brain thinks is that it doesn't understand that the father's tired. He's had a long day at work. The child brain thinks that, oh, you know what? I am not lovable enough. I
Yeah.
am not worthy enough. Had I been worthy enough and lovable enough, then my father would have played catch with.
Yeah.
And it's from a child's perspective. And it's really interesting is that that builds into and that makes us feel insecure. And when we feel insecure, then there comes in the concept of not being able to trust ourselves. Because if we can't trust our parents for keeping the word, and they're the people who are like pretty much everything in our lives when we are
Yeah.
kids, right?
Our
Then
God, our superhero.
exactly. And then what about then how can I trust myself? And we all think about as children, we think about love, right? So that would mean that because they don't love me, I don't love myself. And
Yeah.
what's really interesting is that then that belief starts forming and that belief starts growing and then we become adults. And the belief is also formed on, let me taking a step back, is about looking at and observing our parents, how they behave and how they
Yeah.
behave with the world out there. So the
Yeah.
thing is that I'll give you an example. It's more about, for example, let's just say an electrician coming in, right, to fix the, let's say, the fridge. And it's
Yeah.
more like the thought that because it's an imported fridge, that he might just steal the parts and take the parts away and fit in local parts. And it's
Yeah.
actually it's all about trust, right? It's about the plumber coming in, and it's more like not messing something up by
Yeah.
trying to fix something else. And then
Yeah.
and all these things that we see, right? And then when we become adults, in some shape or form, that same thing is playing up, but it's playing up an adult version of
Yeah.
what we learned as children.
Yeah, wow. Very, 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 very strong. I was actually just going to touch on that and you just said it. So there are two things, there are two elements to it. So there's the first element is actually you might be a very, very good parent. If you're listening in, you have a kid, you say 100 things or the kid expects 100 things from you and you do 85 of them. That is amazing parenting. You're doing your best. But the kid doesn't understand that you have limited energy, that your boss at work is being very, very exhausting, that you're not able to work out and therefore your energy is drained, or you have an illness or you're sick. The kid generally, the younger kids don't understand that. They see the 15 things you didn't do for me, therefore I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy. So it's something which no parent can control. We are all going to have these insecurities. So that's the first element of it. Don't be so harsh on yourself if you're a parent, but don't be so critical of yourself because it can be hard. It can be hard for mothers as well. For the women who are tuned in, it can be really hard when you do a lot of things. You're part of the workforce. You're giving your time to the household, to the kids. It can be very exhausting. So we don't want to put crazy levels of pressure on people. That part is inevitable. Okay, that part of distrust, mistrust is going to happen, and that's okay. The second part is, which is very much in the controllable area, is integrity. The parents who lie in front of the kids, right? Someone is calling, oh, you know what? I had to pick up someone. Can you tell them that dad is not at home? What is the kid saying? Is like, if you see a lot of kids, right, when they say that, the kid would be like, you know what? Dad is saying that he's not at home. Because the kids are very innocent and they don't want to lie. So they don't want to say that dad is not at home because then the kid is
Yeah.
lying. So they're saying dad is saying that he's not at home. So we see that our father figures, my superhero, my God, who's teaching me, my tutor, is acting out of lack of integrity, lying, deceit, how good their behavior is, how bad their behavior is. I remember a story just comes up like we ate at a restaurant once, and after we finished the meal, we were going back. My dad was doing dad things and he was basically looking at the bill and being like, oh, this is how much it came. And on the way, someone pointed out that, oh, they didn't charge us for this dish. And my dad actually drove back and be like, hey, you know what? You didn't charge me for this dish. Take the money. And for me, I was like, why are you doing it? It's okay. Sometimes they overcharge us and so forth. But he was like, no, I want to do it. So from that perspective, I saw very high levels of integrity from my dad. If he would see cash dropped, he would go and give it to the security person. I would be like, no, you know what? The security person might keep it. So I saw myself not having trust in the outside, but my dad was like, this is how I'm going to do it. So I feel a lot of that really plays on in my life as well. When I see myself thinking about what's the right way to do, I think the muscle memory tells me to do the right thing. So the other aspect is the controllable. How honest are you in your dealings? How kind are you in your word? How compassionate are you? What's the amount of safe space you create? Please question yourself about that. Those are the things to question yourself. A lot of people think gossiping is okay, talking bad about someone else is okay. And when you do it in front of your kids, I've seen how kids in real time they shift when they hear someone talking badly about someone and they're actually listening to it. They're actually saying, oh wow, what's happening? So I've seen that thing when there are raised voices and there's a huge argument and a tiff right there. I can see the kid shrink. So these are the elements which we can definitely control, and all of that is also creating a lack of trust because the whole ecosystem in the kid is being shaken at that point of time. Because the parents, what are they preaching? Preaching to be kind, preaching to not shout, preaching to not fight, not raise your hand. But what is my parent doing? Is doing exactly the opposite. So the messaging is completely contradiction, and that contradiction creates mistrust.
Beautiful. I love that. That the contradiction creates mistrust, and it's such a normal tendency, right? To that kids will not generally copy what they see rather than what they are taught. And something
Absolutely.
else about integrity, right? Something that I learned along the way is that another part of integrity is more about telling your child that, okay, I can't play ball with you today, but you know what? The thing is that that doesn't mean that I love you any less. My love for you grows every single day, and I'm responsible for it. So I'm responsible for not playing ball with you. You are actually enough. You are amazing. And can I make it up for you? And can you actually get, and I'm sorry for that. So what's happening is that as you're taking responsibility, there is the child will automatically, there's a tendency not to take that self blame on, right? It's more about the adult is an integrity. It's more like, okay, you know what? And the child will begin to try and understand, okay, you know what? It's a bad day. And
Yeah.
it's about taking that. And my other question, Yogesh, as I'm thinking about, is that we grow up as adults and we have these beliefs about trust. And what you said, something really beautiful, is that all these things, right? Gossiping, all these things, right? In the end of the day, what do they cause? They cause judgment. They bring in
Yeah.
judgment. They bring in insecurity, and that's what it's a double-edged sword, right? In the end of the day, that same sword comes and pricks us as well, and
Absolutely.
it wounds us as well.
Yeah.
So as an adult, if someone's feeling really insecure and is having problems with regards to trusting themselves,
Yeah.
what would be a few tips that you could offer them?
Great question. So I would say insecurity and lack of trust is coming from self-doubt, right? So firstly, I've always said this, anything you want to change, you got to acknowledge. And that doesn't mean you go about saying, oh, you know what? I'm an insecure person. I'm an insecure person. Go around putting a label on you and putting a stamp on your head on it. No, I have a challenge with trust, but I want to change it. So that's the first acknowledgement of it. Once we start to acknowledge, right, what you just said right now is why have I become insecure? Because actually I have lost trust in myself. Okay. Forget the outside insecurities, outside trust being breached. I've actually lost trust with myself because I haven't acknowledged things to me. So imagine the kid reference would be a little bit more easier picture for people to see. The dad coming in, promised to play ball at 9 p.m. after dinner, comes in, acts as if I never promised it. He's actually watching TV. I never did. I never said that. He doesn't acknowledge it. That is going to create a lot of mistrust, distrust in the kids' psyche. We do that to ourselves all the time. I promise that I will not eat ice cream again, and I eat it without acknowledging it that I'm actually eating it. So first thing, acknowledge this is something that's happened. There's negotiation to be happening. So the child has to negotiate with the kid that, you know what, today my energy levels are really low. Let's tomorrow or Saturday, I'm free. It's a holiday. I'm going to play ball with you at 4 p.m. Similarly, listen, I am absolutely can't think of anything other than the ice cream tub right now. Can I have 3 spoons? And from Sunday, I promise that I'll not do it. That is the first step that I'm actually acknowledging the challenge and negotiating it. The second thing is forgiveness. The thing is, we think the way out of our issue is to judge ourselves, is to shame ourselves, is to shit on ourselves. But that is the exact opposite way to do it. So it's counterintuitive. It's like when I'm doing something wrong, like I promised that I'd sleep at 9 p.m. because I had a 5 a.m. start, but I actually started a movie at 9 p.m. And this has happened with me on a couple of weekdays recently. And I have a choice at 12 when the movie's over. I can either shit on myself, listen, you did this again, so stupid, and so forth, never learns. But that is the harsh father, the harsh person, the judgment, which we were just talking about, the judgmental thing, which is a double edged sword. I've tried that. That is never the way out. Once we start forgiving ourselves, right? Once we start understanding ourselves, forgiving ourselves, really being kind to ourselves, that starts the path to building self-trust. And I know there's something coming up for you because your face just lit up.
So yeah, to your point, it's more like we shame ourselves and we guilt ourselves. And a saying by this is a line by Marissa Peer is that, and I love that line, is that she says that guilt itself, right, is a manufactured emotion. And I love that because we create that feeling and we sit with that feeling, but that feeling does not serve us. It tells us, oh, you're a bad person, you're not a good person, and it's more about creating that identity, and then we do the same thing again and feel guilty again. It's about how do we change that. And I think that also comes from, I don't want to digress, it also comes from like a conversation I was having with a client yesterday, and one thing he mentioned, he's like that all that I've been taught is to be hard on myself, and it comes from this place where, right, again, something basics like, boys being told boys do not cry. It comes from there, like, not being able to be easy on themselves. Easy does not mean that you are not achieving your goals. It's about achieving them from a place of happiness, achieving them from a place of joy. So again, at least where I'm concerned, that harsh way, right, that harsh tone, that self tone as well, it leads to lack of trust. And when there's lack of trust, then there's less motivation to actually improve.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that judgment actually leads us to eating that ice cream, watching that movie late night once more. So it's actually putting you in that vicious cycle. Once you're in that vicious cycle, again the judgment, again the same thing, again that, and again that. So it's actually the thing that actually keeps on blocking you from trusting yourself, the harsh tone. One thing I feel, feeling of guilt, I don't think it's completely unnecessary. I think there is logic to it. So it's a little bit of a situation. It's like you got to understand the very nuanced nature of it. Is like if I drive very rashly on the road, I might cause an accident and I would have a lot of guilt if I hurt someone. Automatically, that will prevent me from driving like a maniac. Okay. So the guilt is not bad. The guilt feeling, every emotion which we have, any negative emotion which we have, is not wrong whatsoever. We are made perfect. As we are beautiful beings. So the negative emotion has a purpose. The purpose is like you putting your hand in the fire. It's important to do that so you don't have to put your hand there, because I can possibly go very close to it, feel the burn, feel the warmth, and come back. And that's the only function of guilt. It's basically giving me a feedback. Listen, this is not serving you. So the late nights are not serving me. The eating a whole tub of ice cream is not serving me, because if I have a goal of having a six pack, if I have a goal of being very productive this month, then it's not serving me. The problem is when we drown in the emotion of guilt, when we basically become the negative emotion. So the idea is to just take it as feedback. Okay, I understand. Acknowledge it. Okay, you know what? I understand. This is something which I don't have. This is something which I doesn't serve me. It's a habitual thing. Okay, how can I change it? So think of it at that moment. You want to be the very kind, understanding parent to a very little kid who doesn't understand yet. So at that moment, are you going to tell them that putting your hand in the fire is okay? Are you going to tell them that, oh, the fire is bad? The fire isn't bad. Fire actually can save a life in the cold and up in the mountains, can actually save a life. So you're just teaching them that once you go close to the fire, you understand it's hot, you come back. That's the feedback you get. And I understand where you're coming from. You will learn, I love you. That's the messaging we have to give us during those vicious cycles. That forgiveness, that level of understanding, forgiveness, safe space is the first steps of self-trust.
That's beautiful. And I love how you saw it, right? So the way I would see it is sitting in that emotion and just being it. And I love what you just said, is that what if we treated these emotions as just like a hot plate or like a fire? And it's more like there's something to learn from, but there is no point sitting in them because they will burn us.
Yes.
And so that's pretty awesome and really profound. And I'm just conscious of time here. So as we're coming to an end of this conversation, Yogesh, if somebody had to take like two or three things away in terms of building more trust within themselves, what would you be your two or three tips to give them?
Number one would be forgive yourself. Can you start forgiving yourself and actually seeing the past as what is without any judgment. Second thing is, in the process of forgiving ourselves, there are going to be a lot of emotions, a plethora of emotions that are going to come up. Can you start having the tools to manage it? Be it journaling, breathing, meditating, or seeking help from a professional, whatever it is. The key to life is how you manage your emotions. So, emotions, energy, and motion, how you direct your energy, that's why you're moving. Most of us direct our energies into things that don't serve us, and that's why we are in these vicious cycles. So, just two things: start forgiving yourself, start managing your emotions, and actually, number three, start being very, very honest with yourself. So, speak the truth to you. Once you start speaking the truth to you, you'll start speaking the truth to people. And there's so much power in truth, so much power that you feel empowered after that.
I love that. And it's the truth that actually sets us free in the end of the day. And what I would like to end with is that it's through trusting ourselves that we can trust others. And yes, the thing is that even in this journey, there are times when we betray ourselves, but that does not mean that we should stop trusting ourselves. And
Absolutely.
similarly, where the outside world is concerned as well, is that there will be times, of course, it's important to be conscious about it, but there will be times when we will get burned. And that's okay, because if we close down, then we also close ourselves to the good stuff that's coming up for us. So thank you everyone for joining us. If this podcast has benefited you in any way, then hit the follow and bell icons below. As always, this space is yours. So use the Q&A to put in your thoughts or your challenges. After all, so that little share of yours, you never know who you might be helping. Have a super awesome day.